Hello and welcome to our viewers joining us from around the world. I'm Hannah Vaughan-Jones, sitting in for Hala Gorani this evening in London. He did everything possible to try to escape after his horrific attack, but instead left behind a note and turned his gun on himself as police closed in. Those are some of the new details we're learning about the shooter who murdered 58 people at a music festival in Las Vegas. Dan, we've heard about his meticulous planning, his plotting, his suicide attempts or otherwise, and the fact that there are still, of course, questions over what motivated Stephen Paddock in this crime. What picture is emerging, though, of Stephen Paddock's world?
Well, hello, Hannah. At this point, it's fair to say that authorities are having a difficult time ascertaining a motive. They've talked about the shooter's so-called secret life.
Erin, there's a war of words going on between the two sides at the moment, but in practice, who's actually losing on the battlefield? Is this starting to backfire for the Catalan government?
Well, Hannah, I think it could be argued that things are backfiring on everyone pretty much at this point.
OK, we have to also talk about this administration, which is apparently, reportedly, in something of turmoil at the moment. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, and his future, he has sort of partially denied, or someone has on his behalf, that he ever called the president a moron. And what is Rex Tillerson's future looking like at the moment, Mark? Does he even want to stay in this position?
Well, it's not clear. You know, he himself said actually in his first interview after taking office as Secretary of State that he had to be talked into taking the job in the first place by his wife. This was not something he wanted to do. He didn't think of doing it long term. And so it's unclear that he really has any desire to do it beyond this year, even before you get into the personality conflicts where he finds himself working for a president who he doesn't respect intellectually, and they are very much at odds over how to run the State Department and how to run diplomacy.
Mike, what do you think? I mean, is this a guy who's on the way out of Capitol Hill so he can say what he thinks, but realistically, are there other GOP members who are thinking the same thing? They're just too afraid to say it?
Well, maybe. There's not, you know, the folks up on Capitol Hill are not necessarily known for their displays of courage on day in and day out. But yeah, I mean, Bob Corker has said similar things like this before. He announced his retirement, and in part announced that retirement, saying that he would be free to express more clearly and freely what he thought about the sort of the state of things in Washington.
And Jim, another story that's just been coming into us this evening is news on the Iran deal, Iran nuclear deal, and that President Trump is planning to decertify it. What does that mean? What do we know so far?
Well, let's say what it is and what it's not. So for one, the U.S. is not withdrawing from the deal with this decision if the president goes through with this next week. We are told that he's going to give a speech next week, perhaps on October 12th, saying that the deal is not in U.S. national security interests. So what he does, he decertifies. That, in effect, punts it to Congress. It is up to the U.S. Congress to decide whether to reimpose sanctions on Iran.
Yeah, Brian, another thing he tweeted was in reference to the NBC News story about what Tillerson may or may not have said about him. He said, "No verification from me." Do you think this president understands that in democracies, the leader, the despotic leader or otherwise, simply doesn't need to verify the news in order to make it acceptable?
You said it better than I could. I think deep down inside, he does understand how the news media works, the function of the Fourth Estate. After all, he used the tabloids to great effect in the 80s to make a name for himself. He used NBC's Apprentice in the 2000s in order to become a worldwide reality TV star. He knows how the news world and the entertainment world works. But he, at times when it's convenient for him, chooses to try to tear down and delegitimize the press. It's actually one of the few consistent themes of the Trump presidency. And yet, here we are, 9 months into the Trump presidency, and it doesn't seem to be working for him. Except among his base, he doesn't seem to have been able to tear down the press or to delegitimize the press in the eyes of most Americans. So he'll continue to tweet saying fake news, continuing to use that slur. But I actually think most viewers of this program, most Americans, most folks watching all around the world, they see right through it.
Yeah, maybe people who read Twitter as well, maybe they see right through it as well. Brian, always great to get your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
This has been The World Right Now. Thank you so much for watching. Quest Means Business is coming up next.